Calvin, thanks so much for joining me today. Really good seeing you again, by the way. It's been a little while since we've last talked.
Yeah, it has been, dude. It's been a crazy year, to say the least. As you're kind of the last time that we, really chatted, it's like there was some big changes going on in my life, and they haven't stopped. So doing my best to keep up with it,
It looks like a lot of good changes, though, as far as just seeing on social media and everything with business and life in general.
Yeah, it's funny when I, people ask, they're like, dude, you're doing all these crazy things. You're buying all these things. You're making all this money, and it's like, yeah, I am, but it's like I would trade all of it to have my old life back. And I say that knowing that I can't trade it back to get my old life. It's like it's I guess like that Pink Floyd song, like, Cold Comfort, for change. Like it really is true. It's like all the, cars and cool things in the world, like they don't replace having a family, and they don't replace having somebody that you can go home to every day. And, I think a big piece of, everything that's been driving me, forward over this last year has really been like trying to, find myself again and find out, find myself is the right word for it, to get to a spot where I can feel comfortable meeting somebody new and to start that new life and that new family again. It's like I'm not starting my life and living my life right now, but at the same time, it's different. It's like I want to go travel the world, and there's not much desire to go do that by myself. It's like I very well could. I could go to, I could go anywhere. I could go to Greece, Japan. I could go to Iceland. There's so many places I could go. But one of the things that I really liked was, traveling to places, with somebody, getting to see their excitement going somewhere new as well. And I miss that. And I'm looking forward to, kind of meeting somebody again that I can go travel with and go and share that adventure with. Because of course, it's amazing going to new places, but it's more amazing sharing it with somebody, as you know.
I see. Yeah, I agree. I've done, I guess, a decent amount of traveling, I guess, on both ends. With my wife, we kind of did more when she was still my fiance. We traveled a lot then, but now seems like everything's super busy. But anyways, yeah, we traveled together, but then also I did a lot, kind of on my own as well. I can see both sides of it. Just for the people who are listening, though, I mean, did you want to go into it all a little bit about kind of what you're referencing? Because I wasn't going to talk about anything of yours personal, but just to give people some context, did you kind of want to give like a background on like what you're kind of referring to, or like or even just what your current situation is?
Yeah, well, I think it's important. I spent the entirety of my 20s in a relationship, and spent the last couple of years married. I was with my ex-wife for 9 years. I'm 29 right now. I'm turning 30 in just a couple of weeks, actually. And I spent my entire 20s with one person, and we built a life together, and it was a really wonderful life. And ultimately, things didn't work out. It's not important on what happened, but things didn't work out and things ended. And it's really been both of us trying to kind of figure out, okay, what's next? Because she's the same way. She spent a majority, her entire 20s with me, and we built a life together. We bought a house together. We intertwined our lives greatly, and to suddenly be in a position to just kind of restart that, is a lot. And I'm only 29. People that are older than me, that have been married a lot longer and divorced after 20 years, it's like I know I have an entire runway in front of me still. I've got a lot of life to live, and I'm not letting it slow me down, and I'm not letting it stop me. But that's a big piece of it, is having that kind of mindset going, instead of, poor me, so many people looked at me and they were like, oh, do you feel bad for wasting your 20s? And it's like, that is not what happened. It's like,
people say that too.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot. They're like, oh, like, I bet you deleted every picture of her, and you should. No, it's like, that's, she was an extremely important part of my 20s and an extremely important part of who I am today. And it's really important to remember that and to not, lose sight of that. And so, it's like, no, I still, have a ton of really fond memories with her. And she was a huge part of me starting my business and getting to where I am today. I was actually talking to a friend the other day, and, he kind of, we were talking because he's got a similar situation to me, actually. And he thought, he was like, I am who I am because of this person. And I corrected him. I said, no, you're not. I said, you are who you are for that person. Like I'm not who I am because of my, my ex-wife. It's like I am who I am. I chose to do the things I did for her, not because of her, but for her. I wanted to be the best version of myself for her. I wanted to be the best version of myself for me, not because of her. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does, yeah.
And that's, that's really where I'm at right now. Like I'm not doing what I'm doing. I'm not, on the path that I'm on for anybody else besides myself. And I'm looking to do all these great things for me so that, I can find some, eventually can find somebody that, that appreciates those things and can appreciate where I'm at in my life and where I'm going. I'm kind of rambled there. I don't know if that made sense.
No, not rambling at all. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And because you can't really live for somebody else before you live for yourself first.
Yeah.
Is my kind of my thing is like, I wish I would have had that mindset more when I was a lot younger. It was just like being okay with being alone, and then kind of people will come,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really similar to how it is in business too. I know a lot of our talks with Jay, one of our mentors, and he would talk about that too, how it's just funny how similar dating and relationships are to business, because if you're desperate, if you're feeling that, people will kind of pick up on that energy, and then they're less likely to want to collaborate with you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's like you got to be self-sufficient and stuff. Of course, as you're killing it, yourself, you're doing a like just really a ton of cool things. Every time I look at your feed, man, like you got a lot of interesting things going on. It's obviously really aesthetically pleasing, like a lot of the work that you have going on, like it looks really good.
Thank you.
It's also pretty creative in how you time it with the music and just like the different architecture that you're capturing. And one of those videos, what was it like? It was like a few million views or something like that. On is something in because you're based in Colorado still, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was one of the tall buildings out there, had like a really cool like drone sweep of it.
There's a couple really unique buildings that have popped up in Denver, and I'm really thankful in my business that I've grown to a point that I am somebody that's known within like the construction, architecture, and design, industry. And, when there's these really neat buildings, like I have been, reached out to and selected as kind of, hey, we know that you do really cool work and you're going to put an interesting spin on this. We know you understand construction. We know you understand the design and architecture. And, we want to pick you. And I think that's really cool. I've spent a lot of, and like you said, very, very similar to relationships. In my business, I don't chase work. I don't do cold calls. I don't do advertising. I don't, advertising is kind of a more passive thing, but I don't chase work. I don't, no cold emails, no cold calls. I don't really reach out to anybody. And in the same, kind of vein with dating, it's like when you're chasing somebody, it's like when you're chasing, it never works. You got to just really focus on you and build up your business and your brand, whether that's, your personal brand, whether that's kind of in relationships, like it's so important to have that brand, because then, it's like once you've kind of built that and established that, the right people will come and find you. It's like, it's look at, McDonald's as a brand, it's like they don't have to do any advertising or marketing. People know who they are. And, specifically within like the construction realm here in Colorado, that is how I am known too. I'm known as like the go-to guy. Like this guy gets it, he knows it, he's really good at what he does. And building that brand has been really important, because, these very high profile buildings that, have a lot of public interest, I've had, multiple different parties reach out to me and say, hey, we want to pick you as the guy. And I think, it's pretty cool. It's a cool spot to be in. And it's something that takes a lot of time. I've been in business now 6 years, and it's something that just takes time to establish and to get there. And through just a lot of consistency, I think, more than anything, and just focusing on perfecting your craft. And, in that same vein, I'm, working very hard on doing that with my own personal brand as well. I'm working very hard on becoming the best version of myself, just like I'm working with my business to make my business the best version of itself. And when you do those things, the right people and the right kind of relationships come, and you don't have to chase them. They come to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What would you say are the biggest pillars for your brand that you've been trying to build up, either for Four Blades or even your personal brand too, if you'd want to share some of that?
I think, well, they're I think the same thing. It's consistency is number one. Like my clients know that I'm consistent. They know that, when they reach out to me, they know that once we get the ball rolling with a contract, they don't have to reach out. They know I'm consistent. They know I'm going to reach out to them. A lot of my work is like monthly progress updates for construction. And, they know that once they get the contract started, they don't have to bug me. I will reach out to them each month to schedule it, make sure that they're taken care of. They don't have to lift a finger, and it's consistent. They know that. And with everything I do, it's, very consistent work, and that shows.
Would you say it's kind of a lot of reliability, not just the quality in your work, but reliability? Then it sounds like.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things, like I've told other people, is there's a lot of videographers that are substantially better than I am, and yet they're coming to me asking, how I'm hitting the revenue that I'm hitting and how I'm hitting the goals that I'm hitting. And it's purely just being easy to work with. If you are reliable and consistent and you are just easy to work with, people want to keep working with you. It's, at the end of the day, the video content that I provide versus the video content of somebody who's a lot better than I am, it doesn't matter. Price doesn't matter, anything else. If you're easy to work with, you're going to be the one that people want to work with again. That's been the philosophy of a lot of big companies. Like, look at Amazon. You go on Amazon and with one click you can buy something and have it shipped to your house next day. It's easy. It doesn't get any easier than that. And I've kind of built my business on that same philosophy of just being super easy. Hermosi said it best when he was talking about, just speed and ease. Netflix bet on speed, Amazon bets on speed, and these companies are enormous. And it's just with one click of a button you can get what you need. And contractors, they'll reach out to me, and once they reach out, I do the rest. They never have to lift a finger again. They never have to follow up with me. I do what I say I'm going to do, and it's as simple as that. And that there has been just really the number one pillar of my business and my personal life too. With my fitness, I've had people ask me if I'm on gear, if I'm taking steroids and things like that, and it's like no, and they it's like it's purely just consistency and dedication and reliability. Like the people at the gym know they're going to see me 6 days a week, and they know that I'm going to be there no matter what, rain or shine. No matter how tired I am, I'm there, and I show up and I do it. And that kind of ties into that, brand with, myself, and then also my business is, people know that no matter what happens, like I'll be there and I'll take care of it, and it shows through.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so too. Even when, when we first met, kind of in a lot of those calls and those meetings and stuff like that, I could tell that you were pretty persistent about what you were doing. Consistency is obviously key, but you were also like really persistent, and that like you knew kind of what you were going after, and you wanted to make sure that you would get it and everything. So that was cool, man. Like to see from day one, I would say that kind of showed through. I want to ask though too, Four Blades Digital, you guys obviously do specialize in a lot of the drone work, kind of aerial cinematography, but then also the construction map. Would you call it construction mapping?
Yeah, I would call it aerial surveying is kind of the term that we use. And yeah, that's becoming a very big piece of what I do. And it's anybody can go do it. But it's the reason I think that like I've seen a lot of success with it on my side is I can apply the last decade of project management experience I have to what I'm doing. Like, I'm not just out there flying a drone. I'm out there, providing a very valuable piece of documentation and a piece of CYA for these clients, and I can, I can say, hey, here's why this is going to save you money. Here's why this is cheap insurance, and here's why you should do it. And that's been like the number one thing that I've told people, like, getting into business. The number one piece of advice that I have getting into business. I have other videographers, other drone guys. They say, oh, I want to get into construction like you. You've made a ton of money. I want to do that. And I tell them very bluntly, you're not going to make as much money as I am, and you're not going to be as successful as I am in construction because you don't know construction. It's like I have blended. The number one thing with starting a business is, you're not in it to make money. You're in it to solve a problem. And that's why I started my business, because I saw a problem in the construction industry, and I saw a scope gap, and I said, I know how to solve this, and I know what I can do to specifically solve this problem. And that ties in with all the media and documentation I do, and then also the aerial surveying. Is I saw a problem, and I know how to apply the skills that I have to solve to take care of that problem. And I can explain it, but it's deeper than that. It's years of frustration and being on the receiving end as a project manager, not having proper documentation and not having this, level of documentation that I can provide now. It's frustrating. I guess to sum it up like this, as the project manager, I was essentially the house, in a game of cards. And, whenever anything happened, the house usually lost, and I would end up having to pay for it, and it would come out of the, contractor's contingency. It would come out of our budget. And, we didn't like that. And so, now I work, very hard to help general contractors, to help developers not have to float that money. Like, they will have the documentation needed to get these costs covered, if that makes sense. And so, it's like a bridge inspection. There's a project I've got coming up where a contractor, they were hired on to demolish just the deck of this bridge. So the structure holds the bridge up, and just the deck that you drive on needed to be replaced. And so they ripped off the deck, and they were going to repave it. We've all been over those bridges where they're just filled with potholes and they're falling apart. And so that's what they were doing. They were replacing the deck of the drivable surface of this bridge. They ripped it all off. They were the demolition contractor to rip it off. And after they ripped it off, there was a bunch of defects and issues with the structure below it. And they were blamed for it. And they ended up having to pay to get the structure fixed. There was, there was cuts, there was improper welds, there was neglect that wasn't their fault, but they got blamed for it and they had to fix it. And when they said, hey, this wasn't us, the contractor that hired them said, well, where's your proof? How do we know this wasn't you? How do we know you didn't do this? They didn't have any documentation. So now, going forward on this next bridge they've got coming up, they want me to get out there and document the underside of this bridge and to document the entire structure prior to them getting out there and ripping the deck off, so that they can confidently say, if they get blamed for something, here's what the bridge looked like when we got here. This wasn't our fault. And that kind of documentation, that's just one use case of it, is kind of like very use specific with drones on inspecting and documenting and providing a quick, discrete service to potentially save hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, probably, and in some instances maybe even millions.
Yeah. There's one of the big aerial surveys that we did. It's this contractor. That's a developer, I should say. They have hundreds of thousands of acres of land, and they bought this land 30, 40 years ago in a very undesirable spot. And now that's becoming a very desirable spot, and it's getting built out. And to put a building on a hillside, you can imagine, there's a hill. They have to level out that hill to put the building on there so the building's flat, so the building's not leaning. And so a lot of times, they'll have to pull out extra dirt. They'll have to put that dirt somewhere else. And sometimes they have to import that dirt in, to level out the job site, to put a building flat. And so this contractor, they've got 30 different job sites, all within this enormous acreage that they own. And imagine it's a bunch of different buckets of dirt. And some of the job sites need more dirt and they need to import it in to get the site level. And then some sites have too much dirt and they need to, take that and put it somewhere. And in either of those scenarios, you're talking about millions of dollars of operations to do that. If you have a couple million cubic yards of dirt that you need to import onto a site, you got to buy that dirt and you got to truck it in and you got to, level it all out and put it there. And that's a ton of time and money to do that. And dirt isn't cheap. And then also if you have too much dirt and you need to go take it somewhere and store it, someone's either got to, buy the dirt and you sell the dirt to them and they take it to their job site, or you stockpile it somewhere and you just kind of wait and wait for somebody to buy the dirt. And then you've got an enormous pile of dirt that you don't know what to do with. And so, this contractor has thousands of acres on all these different job sites and they don't know how much dirt they have. And so what we did is we went out and we aerial surveyed, 30 different plots of land. I think in total it was about 30,000 acres of land. And we gave them a very accurate analysis and we were able to quantify how much dirt is in each one of those buckets. So they can recognize bucket number 7 needs more dirt, bucket number 13 has way too much dirt. So instead of having to go and buy that dirt at a premium from somebody else, they can just take it from one bucket and pour it to the other bucket. They still have to, load it up in trucks and truck it over, but now they're buying from themselves. They don't have to, import that dirt to somewhere else. And this site that had too much dirt, now they can get rid of it at a much cheaper cost. Like this, this was one of our largest contracts to date. And just for numbers out there, it was about a $60,000 contract on our end to go do all this aerial surveying and to quantify all these different buckets. But between the earthwork costs that it saved the contractor, it's in the millions. It's in the millions of dollars on how much money it saved them not having to have a surveyor go out and quantify all of this, or go and buy dirt, or spend the money to sell the dirt to somebody else. So
yeah, that number makes it pretty easy to justify your prices.
Exactly.
The investment put in you.
Exactly. And that's in any aspect, knowing the problem that you're trying to solve is what's going to ultimately build your brand and build better success. Because people, and it's like, oh, you're just doing video. That's not a required service. Taking pictures isn't a required thing. It's like, well, it depends on what it is. Like with the developers that I work with that are building a $500 million 2 million square foot building, and they're leasing it out and they don't have a buyer yet. It's extremely important that they have good pictures of the site and they're marketing that so that they can sell that building and get it leased out. It's extremely those pictures are extremely valuable to help get that building leased out and sold. Because otherwise they're sitting on it and just like a new home that gets built and nobody buys it. It's just sitting there, somebody's paying for it. They need to get it sold. And so pictures can help with that. Absolutely.
It's so funny you mentioned that too, because I haven't thought about that for a while, but it's funny. Just funny that you bring that up about photo and video not being valuable or like needed. People think of it as just superficial. Like, I'm trying to think of the, just you don't need it, right? But then obviously it's like that's a very concrete example of how it is needed. It solves a specific problem, saves a lot of money, so it's worth a lot of money. It's not just and we're not even talking about advertising or any kind of like video marketing. That's more like specific problem solving, almost like an extra layer of insurance.
Exactly, and that's what I tell people, when they, somebody getting into drones, it's like, well, like, I always ask somebody getting into any business, it's like, well, what did you do before this? It's like that, did you work in accounting? Did you work at a McDonald's? Did you work, tell me what you did. And then, I guarantee no matter what you did for work, there's a problem that a small business could help solve, and you could be the one to start that small business. I was telling some other business owners, like other people that wanted to, other entrepreneurs that were considering starting a business. I gave them this example, and I just made it up, like it may not be true, but in explaining this analogy, they were like, oh, I get what you're saying. And so back in January, I got to shoot my very first McDonald's. I got hired on by McDonald's. They just built this new state-of-the-art McDonald's. Seriously, it was the fanciest McDonald's I've ever been into. And like a day before they opened, I got in there to go take a bunch of final photo and video of the project. It was really, really cool. The kitchen was completely confidential. Like their kitchen layout is proprietary, and they don't want any pictures of that being shared, to any other vendors. It's very interesting. It's a very it's a very high value market that they are in. It's like it's a multi-billion-dollar market making hamburgers. But it got me thinking, because I was talking to the manager of that specific building, and I was like in another venture that I have, using like drones to like pressure wash. I kind of thought about the reality that like these buildings need to be pressure washed, probably once a year, because they just get dirty. You got to clean the windows, you got to clean the outside to keep the building looking clean and looking desirable, so people keep going there. That's so for this analogy here, once a year, probably, these restaurants need to get pressure washed and need to get cleaned. And say, for instance, that, a typical McDonald's, and I'm just making up numbers here, say they bring in, $20K in revenue a day. And you have a pressure washing company, they're the best in the business, nobody does it better than them. And that, the manager calls them and says, hey, we need to get our building pressure washed. And they go, cool, well, you're gonna have to shut down your building for 2 days. It's gonna take us 2 days to, completely clean the exterior of the building, and then we'll be done. And so it's like, okay, that's, they're gonna lose $40,000 in revenue to shut down for 2 days. And, even though they're gonna do the best job in the world, like that's a pretty steep price to pay. And conversely, they have another business another pressure washing business that knows how these fast food restaurants work, and they say, hey, we're going to come in. We don't do as good they don't do as good of a job as this other contractor, but they do it overnight, so the restaurant doesn't need to be closed. That company is going to get hired every single day by this McDonald's, and when the manager of another McDonald's asks, hey, who did you guys use? They're going to recommend that guy, because they fit into their specific need and solved a problem of making sure the restaurant didn't need to be shut down. And so it's they're doing the same thing. They're both pressure washing a building, but one of them is accommodating to the schedule required for that specific client, and required to the schedule, adhering to what they need, and that's in construction. There's tons of people with drones, there's tons of people that do what I do, but I do it in a way that helps solve a problem for the construction companies, which is time and speed. Like most of my deliverables are delivered same day or next day, because that's what my clients like. That's what they need. They want a fast turnaround. Quality, whether the quality is at 100% or it's at 80, 90%, they don't care. If they can get it same day or next day, that's better than having somebody do a slightly better job and taking a week or two to turn it around.
Yeah, that's super fascinating too. And it's interesting, the point about solving a problem is kind of how you were saying what business is all about. It's like you're not building a business or making money. It's like you're solving a problem doing that. I'm curious though, especially when you first started out, I've heard you talk a lot about passion too, and kind of fulfilling your dreams. How do you align doing what you want to do, kind of fulfilling your dreams, and aligning that up with the needs of other people or other businesses? How do you make sure that that's kind of that it's hitting both of those, checking both those boxes?
A great question. And I think I don't have a concrete answer for that, because I think in my mind, if you're really doing what you love and you're doing something that you believe in and that you're passionate about, you'll find a way to make it help people. There's people, let's use Legoland as an example. There's people that really love building and playing with Legos, and they go and make art with Legos, and that's all they do. And it's like, okay, that's a very abstract job, but they make art that millions of people a year come to Legoland to see and to appreciate. And I remember going to Legoland as a little kid, and it was a very positive memory. And, you know, my mom and I, like, that's a very positive family memory that my mom and I have together. And, you know, somebody helped give that dream to me by getting to play with Legos all day. And so I don't think, like, no matter how abstract it may be, like, you know, I started my business flying drones because I liked remote control helicopters and remote control toys, and I you know, liked aviation, and drones became a thing. I got a drone and just started taking pictures, and kind of ended up, you know, I had that entrepreneurial drive, and so I wanted to find a way to make money with it. But I think if you are truly doing something that you love, like, you can find a way to make money with it, and it not necessarily in a really linear way, because I really love construction. I love building. I love the equipment. I love all of the aspects of construction, the people, you know, everything. But I really, really disliked being a project manager because, you know, I'm tied to a job site, you know, very long, tedious hours, you know, 60-hour weeks. I loved what I did, but it was tedious. I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. And so, you know, I found a way to blend my love of aviation, my love of, like, remote control things and construction together to do something that I really love. And so it's, you know, there's people that they've got a background in logistics and supply chain management, and they really love playing with Legos. There's a lot of opportunity there to, you know, to blend what you already know about supply chain management and logistics and Legos somehow. I don't know how, but, you know, it's like, what I tell people is if they really are passionate about photography, but they work, you know, they've spent the last decade of their career working in accounting, it's like, okay, well, you know, I'm not an accountant, so I don't know, but it's like, what could you use photography for in the accounting side that could help people? You know, I don't know. There's a lot of ways to think through, you know, if you like something, you may not be able to make money doing exactly that, but I bet you can do something in an adjacent industry with it, you know? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. That's cool. And did you get into construction right out of high school?
Yes and not no. So when I went to college, and I went to college for mechanical engineering, and
nice.
Quickly realized I did not have the patience in math to become a mechanical engineer. And I went into business school after that. I didn't like that either. And one of my friends actually mentioned to me, they kept noticing that every time I went to CSU, and there was always construction going on campus. And they always noticed that, like, every time, like, we walk past a construction site, you always stop and, like, you know, observe and, like, look at what's going on. They're like, you should consider construction management. And I quickly snapped back. I'm like, I don't want to be a blue collar construction worker. Like, I don't want to do that. And then I kind of started looking into it a little bit more, though. Saw, you know, where the pay ranges were, and jumped into construction management and loved it, and graduated with a degree in construction management.
Oh, so you switched in college to over to that. Nice. And I saw one of your videos when you were talking about kind of how somebody came up to you. They wanted to talk to the person who owned the Rivian, your truck.
Yeah.
And that it brought you back to the time when you were in a position like that, or talking to people with nice cars, and all of the people who had them told you that they were business owners, that was like the one common denominator. And that was kind of one of the drivers that made you want to start a business. When you got into construction, did you ever consider thinking, hey, maybe I could start my own construction business? Like, what made you kind of want to pivot away from construction itself? I know you mentioned the bit about, like, how being a project manager was tedious, but did you ever think, like, maybe there's a construction business in it for me where I don't have to be doing, like, what I'm doing right now?
Yeah, I originally, Four Blades was always a means to an end of starting a construction business. My ex-wife and I, she was in architecture and design, and, you know, we had talked a lot about starting, like, a design build firm, kind of like Chip and Joanna Gaines, you know, let's get on TV and go, you know, design and build homes. That was our dream. That was what we really wanted to do. And I always thought, you know, Four Blades was going to be a means to an end to get to that goal of starting my own construction company. And, you know, there's a lot of people in the industry that do exactly that. We as kind of general contractors, we always called them like a chuck in a truck, because it was always just kind of one guy that showed up in his truck like me that would, go take on a project. And instead of, running 10 projects, they just run just one. But when they're the superintendent, the project manager, and, they're playing, all the hats and they're running the project, it's a lot of work, but there's also a lot of money to be made in it too. And I'm not writing that off as a possibility in the future of starting my own construction company and doing that. But with where Four Blades has been able to go, it's no longer a means to an end. Like I've found that this business is extremely viable, and with the niche that I have found in the market doing what I'm doing, there's a lot of money to be made for the foreseeable future with it too. I provide a valuable service that a lot of big developers and contractors like, and I don't necessarily have that drive as much anymore to go and start a construction company anymore. It's just not as much there anymore. I like working in construction, doing what I do, a lot more than I would like, being stuck to a specific project,
Yeah. It's kind of like you get the best of both worlds. Like you get to move around quite a bit while still being in your art of like photography and video, stuff like that.
That's the best part, is I get to do exactly what I love. And it took a lot of years and a lot of 100-hour weeks to get to where my schedule is the way it is now. But I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love what I do. I get to drive around. I get to go visit the coolest, neatest construction projects in Colorado. I get to go see some just beautiful places and some really beautiful things. And I get to go see these amazing projects, hear about all the headaches, document it, photo it and make it look pretty, and then I leave. Like, that's the nice thing. Like as a project manager, I was stuck on site. It's like I couldn't escape from it. All the problems of the job site, supply chain issues, issues with other contractors, those were my problems. And I could leave, but then the next day they were right there. Now I can kind of go and see all the cool sides of it. And, they complain about all the contractors and they complain about supply chain issues. And I go, great, that's not my problem. And I leave. So it's nice. It's nice to not be tied to it.
Got your memory cards, taken care of, and that's all you need.
Pretty much.
Man, yeah, that is cool though. I think about that too with the just photography and video is like, it's a lot of creativity, but there's also a big capture side of it. Is like you have to just be at the right place at the right time, capture it, and do your job there. Was photography something that you did on the side, just completely on your own as well?
No. I when I got into it, I didn't know anything about photography, and everything that I've done has been completely self-taught. Okay. For the first couple years that I did this, I was shooting in auto and, didn't know what ND filters were, didn't know anything. It's really been a learn as I go process. And I gave this advice to a couple up and coming entrepreneurs that I met with yesterday, is you just got to go for it. You don't, you get so caught up in being paralyzed and like, well, I need all these conditions to be met that are perfect before I can start. And it's Hormozi said it best, like the perfect time to start is now. The perfect condition to start is right now. And you learn as you go. You start shooting in auto, and you thankfully I had a pretty good understanding of how to kind of frame a shot, and then, so that's a tough thing to learn if you don't know how to, frame a shot well. And thankfully I had a pretty good idea of how to frame the shot, and then the rest kind of just fell into place with thousands and thousands of photos and years of doing it. Now I've got, hundreds of thousands of photos under my belt and hundreds of thousands of videos. You get better. I look back at, the very first video I did when I first made a video for a client, and I look at the video I can do now, and it's substantial. It's crazy how much I've learned, but it's what you just got to go for it,
And at the time you made that first video, did you feel like that was already pretty good at the time?
I liked it. I was really, I'll never forget that exact night. I was sitting at my apartment with, my fiance at the time, and And I put it together, and when I was done, when it exported, and I first looked at it, I probably watched it 100 times. I was so excited. It's the coolest thing. I'm like, I can't believe I made this. I created something, and sent it to the client. The client absolutely loved it. It was amazing, and it was a monumental moment, a historical moment to create something like that and do it for the first time.
Yeah. And it's funny how it's like that there's that progression, but each time you do it, it's like you still think it's pretty good. I don't know if it's like that for everybody, but at least for me, like my very first videos I made, I thought they were really good. And then looking at them now, it's like I would never make something like that again, like at least not just style, but kind of quality. Like I didn't know what I was doing in so many different areas. I still have a long way to go, obviously, but it's just funny that we think that at each stage,
It's that's the perfect mentality to have. Like I tell people that, like, when when I was 21, like I thought I had life figured out, and I thought I was pretty smart, and I had a lot, I'm like knew what I was going to do with my life. And I look now at 29 and I go, I had no idea what life was about. And I feel at 29 now, I'm like, I've got it pretty well figured out. I've got a pretty good idea of what's going on, and I'm excited to be 35, to be 39. I'm excited to be a decade older at 39, looking back at myself going, I had no idea what I was doing at 29. And that's how it should be. It's like I'm excited. I look back at my previous work a year ago and I go, wow, that was really good, but I have gotten so much better, and you improve. Like you should look back at your old self and kind of cringe a little and go, wow, I've gotten a lot better. That's what you should do. We're in the process of improving all the time. It's what we should be doing.
Yeah, if you haven't changed at all after 5 to 10 years, there's probably something wrong.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah, the videos I did last month versus the videos I did this weekend, pretty similar quality, feels pretty good. But yeah, you should be able to look back at your work from years ago and go, wow, that was really good for what I knew at the time, but I have gotten so much better, and I've gotten, I've developed my skills so much more. You should be constantly improving. So, but be proud of where you're at. I'm proud of where I'm at now, and like I said, I'm excited to look back a decade from now and be like, I was in a good spot, but wow, I'm in a much better spot now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I heard somebody say, I think it was Bedros. I don't know if you follow if you know Bedros Keuilian. He's an entrepreneur. Comes out with a bunch of new content and stuff like that. And he mentioned a term that I kind of liked, and he said it's great to be blissfully dissatisfied. So it's like you're not satisfied with where you are. You're always trying to get better, but at the same time you're enjoying it. And it's it's blissful to you. So I kind of like that term.
Blissfully dissatisfied. I do. I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of have that character defect where we're always kind of, I'm very grateful with everything that I have and where I'm at, but I'm also very much more eager and excited for where I'm going to go, and a lot of people go, you're not grateful for what you have and where you're at. And I go, no, I'm extremely grateful for what I have and where I'm at. And I recognize how fortunate I am to be here, but it's like, that doesn't mean I'm satisfied with it. It's like, I want more. I want to keep going. I don't know where that's going to be. I've got, some ideas and plans of what the next couple of years could look like, but just like this time last year, I was blissfully unaware of what was coming. And where I would be a year from now last year, and that's and the same thing could happen now. I don't know where I'm going to be this time next year. I've got a general plan, and I'm going to do my best to hit the goals that I've set in front of me right now. And if they change, and they will change, great. We adapt, and we get to that spot as it comes. You have to be just a little aloof, I guess, with your goals and with reality. It's because life is messy. Life is very non-linear. And
that's a good way. Yeah, good way to put it.
I gave that analogy to my mom the other day, where it's like, it's kind of like, it's like a roller coaster. Like the roller coaster, you're constantly going forward, but sometimes the roller coaster loops up and backwards, and you're technically going backwards, even though you're still going forwards. And that has been just the summary of my life for this last year, where it's like I've continued to make steps going forward, but the process forward has had a lot of twists and turns and loop-de-loops in it that I wasn't anticipating. And that's with business, that's with relationships, that's just with everything. It's just, you never know. As long as you're taking steps forward, I confidently take steps forward every day. And, sometimes I don't have the path in front of me and I don't necessarily know where I'm stepping. I'm stepping blindly forward, but I'm still taking steps forward. And the only way you're ever going to reach that clearing in the forest and to get the clarity to see where you're going is by just stepping through the darkness when you can't see. You have to just keep taking those steps and see where it goes. It's like I recently moved into a very, very luxury, very expensive apartment complex in the middle of Denver. And I was like, it'd be really fun to live in the heart of Denver. It's going to be really fun to kind of live in the thick of it. And I'm going to try it. 2 months in, I don't really like it. And I've just bought a house and I'm moving here soon. And I've had people reach out and they say, you're breaking your lease. You're going to have to spend all this money, do all these things. And it's like, yeah, but I learned. I thought
Right.
maybe I'm going to enjoy living in the city. Tried it, didn't like it. I learned. It's like that was kind of a blind step moving to the city and doing that. And it wasn't until I was in the middle of it that I recognized I don't like it.
And your house is outside the city?
More, yeah, kind of back to like suburbia.
Oh, okay.
I like, I want to build a house up in the mountains at some point, and I will. And maybe I'll build it and I won't like it, and I'll move back to suburbia. Who knows? But you don't really know until you do it. You never really know if you're going to like being an entrepreneur until you do it. I spent the last 6 hours of my Saturday working, and a lot of people would look at that like, that's crazy. You spend your weekends working, like that sounds miserable. I'd rather keep my day job. And, sometimes they try it and they recognize, wow, I really do like this. And I like working. I'm working on a Saturday because I want to.
Yeah.
And some people do it and they hate it and they go back to their day job and they love it. You have to try it to see if you're going to like it or not,
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we kind of like come to an end, kind of towards the later end of our conversation, I know some of the things that you talk a lot about are physical fitness, mindset. Is there anything when it comes to mindset or fitness that you would definitely kind of either recommend for people or that are just really important to you? Because I think sometimes, and I've heard some people say this too, is like, oh man, enough with the mindset. Like it's just so abstract, and yet I've noticed all the most successful people, they have a very strong mindset and they are pretty serious about that. And if you ever ask them about that and they're willing to share it with you, they have something to say about mindset. So is there anything, what would you say to somebody who's maybe a little bit skeptical about the idea of nurturing your mindset or thinking about mindset to begin with?
I have had so many people that know what happened with my ex-wife and I, that know the ins and outs of how that marriage ended, blown away. They're just like, with everything that happened to you, just blown away at how well you bounced back from it and recovered from it. And I attribute all of that to just having a really good mindset. I attribute all of my success to having just a positive mindset and making the best of the situations that I've been in. I think like physical fitness plays a huge role in that, because when you show up for yourself every day, you start seeing results. You see your body change, and that's something you can actually watch. Like watching your mindset change is abstract. It's very abstract to kind of this positive thinking. It's like it's a very abstract thing.
Yeah.
But when you apply like a positive mindset and discipline to like physical fitness, and you show up every single day, your body will change. And then you can then it's just kind of, it's physical proof that you can look in the mirror and say, I am actually changing because I show up and do this every single day. And the number one thing that I have for mindset that it's like a core principle in my life is never miss twice. Like there's days where you miss the gym. There's days where, things don't go right, and you got to miss the gym, but I never miss twice. Like I don't care what happens to me, I will not miss the gym twice in a row. Because once you like get out, like even just, I've been going to the gym consistently for 15 years. You miss twice in a row though, and like your mindset starts to kind of change. It's like, oh, okay, well, what's one more day, and then what's one more day, and you start kind of falling off the wagon. And so both with like exercising at the gym and also nutrition, like of course there's days where I'll have pizza, I'll have ice cream, and I'll just eat all the good stuff, but I don't do it twice in a row. I never do that 2 days in a row. If I eat, really bad today, I'm going to eat clean tomorrow. I could eat, really bad again the next day, but never twice in a row. And that, like, I think that has been a really important aspect of my life. It's, just with business, with everything, it's like I've got days where I'm really off and I don't do a good job and I don't get as much done as I want. But then the next day I buckle down and I figure it out, because it's like I can't have two days like that in a row. And our mentor Jay, talks a lot about mindset, and just I spend good money on somebody, I kind of a therapist, I guess you could call him, that I meet up with twice a month, and I have for the last couple years. And he is my mindset coach. That's what he does. He helps get my mindset right and helps me get my mindset aligned. And the trajectory of my potential, having a better mindset, has just exploded on what I thought I was capable of. My trajectory on where I thought I could go in life has just exploded, having a better mindset and having the consistency and discipline in my life to back that up. It's like I know I can achieve anything I set my mind to, because everything that I have set my mind to, I have achieved, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's like you can believe in yourself with the proof that you're stacking on a regular basis.
When you show up for yourself every day, whether that's for your business, whether that's for your nutrition, whether that's for physical exercise, your mindset, whatever that is, and you don't miss and you do show up for yourself every day, you start building that confidence that, I can do anything because you show up for yourself. And it's the people that don't show up for themselves, they don't get it. It's like that's where I like completely subscribe to that mindset, philosophy, where it's like, no, he is kind of crazy, but it's once somebody has really embraced that positive mindset and they've showed up for themselves consistently for 3 months, 6 months, a year, they start recognizing all the potential that they actually have when they do the hard work every day.
I'm really enjoying this conversation, man, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but when we first met too, like I was, like I said, I found you to be a pretty serious, impressive person. I didn't notice any kind of like big change or anything, but then that one day where you shared kind of like your transformation, one of your transformation photos, I think you posted it on social media too. I was blown away by the change, that like I said, I didn't even notice, like I didn't see you as somebody that was out of shape or anything like that, but just that where you are today is like, I was blown away, man. So good on you for that.
Thank you. I found in everything in my life, like I worked out for the last 15 years, but I was that guy. It's like you could tell he worked out, but you could tell he didn't say no if somebody offered him a cookie. It's like I didn't know a lot about nutrition, and that was my big crutch, is I just didn't know. And so that was finally what pushed me to hire like a fitness coach, somebody that can teach me more about nutrition and diet, and teach me not only what to do, but why I'm doing it. Here's why you need to consume this much protein. Here's why you need to consume this much fiber. Here's why you need to do these things. And once I learned those things, it became very easy to implement them into my life. Like I don't like to eat bad anymore. Like I haven't had, a soda or anything like that in almost a year, because it's just, I look at it and I'm like, this isn't worth it. It's the same abstract reason that we don't do hard drugs, because we're like, we know that's not good for us. And we know that because we've been educated that, these drugs are very dangerous for you. And, but there's a huge lack of education around like eating right. Like people, like I was explaining the kind of core principles that I have on like eating well, that have allowed me to get into the shape that I'm in, to my mom. And she kind of looked at me and she apologized and she goes, "I'm so sorry that I never taught you how to properly eat." And I said, "Mom, there's nothing to apologize for. Like, you didn't know either. Nobody knows. Like, it's not something that's, it's same in school. Like we talk about like, oh, they never teach us about taxes. They never teach us about these things. And it's just one of those things it's not taught. And once you're taught about it and once you learn the importance of, not eating things with added sugar, hitting your protein targets a day, they become just non-negotiables in your day that you have to do, and that's same with everything. Like, every part of my business, like I've learned those non-negotiables. It's like I have to do these things every day in order for my business to be successful. And I have to do these things every day in order for, my body to feel good and to be healthy. And it's just the way my brain is programmed now. Like I can't imagine doing it any other way,
Yeah. You said no soda. Is that the same with alcohol too?
I will drink. I don't have any alcohol in my, actually I do. I've got a couple bottles of wine here in my house, but I just don't drink. I don't go out of my way to drink. I like, if I'm sitting here relaxing, I'm not going to go get a glass of wine or anything like that. Like I will drink in social situations. If we go to a Mexican restaurant and you get a margarita, I'm going to get one too. If we're going out on like a Friday, Saturday night, going to the bars, yeah, I'll get a drink. But otherwise, like it's an exception, not a, if we're just going out for dinner, I'll probably just get like an iced tea or something. Like I'm not going to get anything to drink.
It's not a regular thing.
Yeah, and that's just preference. No real reason besides that, just preference.
That's cool. So for somebody who's into drones or kind of into photography and video in general, do you have any kind of recommendation? What would you say to somebody who maybe stumbles across this conversation, sees the success that you've had, and they want a piece that, they want to experience that for themselves? What's maybe the first step that you would suggest that they take?
I will reference a conversation I had with a young man earlier this week, who's getting into drones, and he scheduled a call with me to just pick my brain about being a business owner. And he doesn't have a construction background like I do. And I said, he's pretty young. He's still in high school. And I said, obviously you don't have a decade of experience working in the real world like I do to lean on. But I said, but your mom and dad do. I said, go like, what does your mom and dad do? What do they do? And ask them about, the problems that they have at work, and see if you can identify a problem that they have that you could potentially solve with a camera, with a drone. And that's my advice to anybody is if you are 30 years old and you've got 10 years of working experience and you want to get into drones, how could a drone benefit what you have done with your work over the last 10 years? Like, it was very easy for construction for me, but take somebody gets into photography. Photography has a use in every single industry in the world. And, whether you are selling a product, whether you are selling a service, no matter what it is, photography can help. And my advice to them is to find a problem that you can solve with a camera. Find a problem that you can solve with that thing. I have a friend that just got into 3D printing. 3D printing, is a kind of more niche thing. And, this particular friend is very into planting and into gardening, into hydroponics. And he, for himself, 3D prints a lot of like hydroponic parts for planting and for gardening. And I told him he went to like a local gardening center and showed off some of the stuff that he 3D printed, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is huge. Like, we would love to sell your product in store, and we would love to use this product for ourselves too." And that's, like a very, never would have guessed, that 3D printing and like hydroponic planting would be so intertwined. But there's like a very niche thing that can be solved. And so bringing photography into that, if he wants to sell this product, he's going to need really good product photos of the product that he's making to put onto his website to sell. So somebody's got to take those pictures. Why not be the guy that's getting into photography? So they just solve a problem. Like is what I would say. No matter, if you're 3D printing, if you're into photography, if you're, you like whatever you like find a way to solve somebody's problem and then say, how much would you pay to have that problem solved? Now you're in business.
Yeah. Find a budget,
And as you get better, charge more. I look, the client the very first video that I ever made, I still work regularly with that client. And a couple of years ago, I raised my price, because I had grandfathered them into my beginning prices. And I said, all right, guys, we got to have the discussion about kind of bringing you guys up. I can't keep giving you guys this good of work for this cheap. And they kind of were like, well, this is insane. Your prices have quadrupled. Like, we're not going to, we don't want to pay that. And, I sent them the very first video I ever did. And then I sent them a video I had just done for them. And I said, this is why this costs more now. It's like, this is why this costs more. And they understood, it's like, as you get better, you charge more. And so,
they saw the discrepancy, the difference.
Yeah, they did. And again, both videos were objectively good, but you could tell the difference,
Yeah. For somebody who's up and coming, would you recommend that they go on YouTube and kind of start with the technical side of photography and drones, or more with the business side, or kind of like all at the same time? Like, what would you suggest for the order there?
I say you just go for it. I'd say go buy the drone and, go start asking people how much they would pay for you to take photos of whatever they want you to take photos of. Just go and wing it and figure it out. And you there's so many people that spend a lot of money up front to have the best of the best, or the best software, the best whatever, and they don't need it yet. Just get started with what you have, and as your path becomes clear, as you're walking down that path and it becomes clear, you'll recognize what you need to spend more money on. I'm doing totally fine with this drone, but my computer can't keep up with editing, and I need a better computer to edit photo and video better. Great, get a new computer then. That's the next thing you should purchase. And I switched from YouTube to Vimeo at one point because I started getting to a spot where professional developers were like, we don't want to see ads at the end of our videos. We need somewhere where we can privately host it. At that point I switched to Vimeo and haven't looked back since. It's like, that wouldn't have been something, you don't need Vimeo to start. You don't need the $5,000 drone to start. You don't need the very nice MacBook to start. Just get started with what you have. And as you run into the next problem, solve it. You don't need a CPA to start. Do it with TurboTax. Write off everything you can to the best of your ability. And, when you get to a spot where you're making so much money, you're like, I should probably hire a CPA. You'll hire a CPA. Don't worry about insurance. Don't worry about those things until you run into a client that says, hey, send us over your COI before you get started. Cool. Now you got to deal with insurance. Get that figured out. It's like, people think they need a website, they need insurance, they need all these things to get started. No, you need to go get started. I offer a service with thermal imaging. I don't even have a thermal imaging drone, but I offer that service. And when somebody says, hey, we need thermal images of this building for whatever reason, I will go buy a thermal imaging drone and I will go do it. But it's like, I don't need to have that drone sitting here waiting for that client to come around. It'll happen when it needs to happen. And that's,
yeah. And who knows, maybe you'll even end up renting it for that, because it doesn't mean that you don't, you already have the knowledge, the professional knowledge, behind that style. Even if you don't have the actual drone, you have the knowledge for it. So.
Exactly. And that's, the best advice I tell people is just to not get paralyzed thinking of all the things you need to do to get started. You just need to get started and to just do it. And you will learn as you go what you need to focus on. It's like, I thought it was extremely important to get my Part 107 drone license, and I am, I'm fully licensed with the FAA and everything, but in the 6 years I've been in business, I have never once needed to show anybody that license or anything else. It's like that was something I was like, oh, I need to get this done. Really, I didn't. Like the thing I needed more importantly at first was getting insurance, because the first client that hired me said, cool, send us over your certificate of insurance before you get started. All right.
Oh, okay.
Got to get my insurance going. And you don't know until you get started and ask. It's like the first client, okay, well, in order for us to send you a check, you'd send us your W-9. What's a W-9? Google it, fill it out, send it to them, get your check. You figure it out as you go. The problems won't ever pop out. Like, at least in my experience, the problems won't ever pop out and sucker punch you. You'll see them coming, and you'll go, oh, you know what? I bet you I'm going to need to get insurance for this particular project. I bet I'm going to need a better drone for this particular project. Like, you see them coming. And I think if you've got a fairly good head on your shoulders, you won't get sucker punched and surprised by any problems,
Yeah, and we're not even saying, don't be legal about it. Like the Part 107,
totally.
Technically, you have to have it if you're flying a drone commercially.
Correct.
So go ahead and get it. But
yeah,
I totally agree with what you're saying, is like you just have to get going, because I think that's analogous to video editing too. Like almost any video editing software, it's like I didn't have to learn all the ins and outs of Premiere Pro. I learned what I needed to for each like video that I was trying to make, like each effect that I was trying to do.
Yes.
And I still don't know everything about that program, and I use it every day.
Same. Yeah. I know what I need to know. And
right.
When somebody says we want this neat animation, this neat effect, I will learn it when I need to learn it. There's no reason to not be in business now because I don't know the ins and outs of the entire program. Like, you learn it as you go. That's completely accurate.
Premiere Pro, and then After Effects is even more complicated, or at least in my experience. And I don't know that like the back of my hand yet, but it's about problem solving. I solve one problem at a time, and so it sounds like you've applied that same mentality to your business though too. It's like just going.
Yeah, and oftentimes you solve one problem, and that allows another problem to show up. And it allows another problem to become unearthed. And then you solve that problem. And then that leads to another problem. And that's what I do. I just solve problems all day, and you get better. And you look back at I look back at the problems I was solving 5 years ago, and I look at the problems I'm solving now within my business, just accounting, invoicing, how I track my finances, the methods that I use to edit photo and video, like, has gotten better. And that's, I don't know everything about it, but I know enough to do my job well. And I look back, I'll look back at it 5 years from now and go, wow, I was doing things very primitively. I was doing the best I could at the time. And I expect to get better.
Yeah.
I expect to learn more.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I know we could keep talking about this too, because and there's obviously a lot I would love to learn from you with your business and how you've applied it, like in the construction industry, drones and stuff. I haven't flown enough drones for my videos.
It's fun.
Usually, like wedding couple, when I do a wedding video, they like the drones, but other than that, it's been more just kind of the handheld cameras and stuff like that. But
and that's the side I'm learning now too. It's
really?
So much to learn. Oh yeah. Yeah, we'll see if the lighting setup that I have here is any good. We'll see if any of the footage I have is usable.
Oh yeah,
we're learning.
I'm sure it's solid, and we got this one too, through the computer too. So worst case scenario, we got multiple angles. What's next for you, man? So it sounds like Denver. Do you plan on staying in the Denver area for the next, like 5 to 10 years or so?
That's on the plan right now. Yeah,
Nice.
That's kind of the plan right now. I think it doesn't sound crazy anymore. It's pretty rock solid, but I think the next big thing for me that I'm actively working on is getting the business to a spot where it runs itself, so that I can focus on something bigger that I have planned in my life. I enjoy helping people. I really enjoy, getting to make an impact. And I have thought for a while on how I could impact more people and how I could help more people on a broader scale. And the thing that kept coming back to me was politics. And I really want to get into politics. I would like to run for Congress. I think
I did not know that. I did not know that.
I would like to run for Congress in 2027 is the goal. Actually, I think it might be 2028 because the elections. I've got in the planning stages. Maybe, I've got some years to figure it out. But I brought this up to my mindset coach just last week when we caught up. And he goes, okay, well, you need to get your business to a spot where it runs itself so that you can focus on that. And I said, yeah, that's the goal. That's what I am actively working on now, is getting the business to a spot where it runs itself so that I can focus on the bigger thing, the next thing for me. And that's what the next 5 to 10 years looks like right now. Could totally change. It's where it's at right now, and I'm going to go for it. So we'll see.
I don't know how. I did not know that.
No, it's been. I tried to. I don't like to talk politics, obviously, but it's been something that's like kind of been in the back of my mind, and I'm like, I think I could do it. And then really just with the mindset that I have and showing up for myself, I'm like, man, if I could accomplish all this, in the last 6 years with my business, like if I applied myself into that world, where would I be in 6 years? And it's like I could do anything I wanted. And that's the cool thing about having a good mindset like that, is you recognize, yeah, I can do anything,
Absolutely. We'll have to do this again sometime if you're willing, we could talk about that as well.
I'd love to. I'd love to focus on mindset and focus on kind of, what that looks like what the discipline, consistency, and mindset that I have looks like and what it's allowed me to accomplish. I would very much like to talk about that.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do this again sometime, man.
Deal. Yeah.
More mindset. Yeah, more mindset talk. And then maybe we could reference some books too, because there's all kinds of sources out there, different information, and people like I remember Jay, for example. We had Think and Grow Rich was one of the books, right? One of the sources. And then I was always kind of surprised that Jay, in one of the calls, he goes, it doesn't work for everybody. He's like, he kind of alluded to him having never read that book himself. I was kind of surprised by that. But just because he was very consistent with what they talk about in that book, like with a lot of it, but it turns out he didn't even use that same strategy in there. So, but just as an example, we could talk about all kinds of stuff.
Well, and it's like, sometimes there's a lot of books that I've read. Like one of my favorite books is, just to quickly touch on it, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And, a lot of people reading that book, they're going to look at it two ways. They're going to look at it and go, wow, I have a lot to learn. I could apply these mentalities to myself. I read that book and I was like, oh my God, this is me. This is how I already think. I already do all these things. Like that's like, and it was kind of like a confirmation on like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. And yeah, there's, so many different mentors out there that they're essentially, it all comes back to mindset, and it all comes back to, having that good mindset, but they subscribe and they tell their story in a different way. It's like, I think, Alex Hormozi is extremely successful, and everything that I see from him and all the books that I've read from him, I recognize a lot of myself in him. Like him and I are very similar in the way we operate and the way we think. And so reading his books has just been like, okay, that confirms that I'm on the right path. Like that's a good path to be on. And it's really inspiring to me because I'm like, look at his success. He thinks the same way I do. Like if I keep doing what I'm doing, like I will get there too. And so it's very confirming for me, but other people might listen to that and go, oh, I didn't think like this at all. I need to start applying this thinking, or they apply their own spin to it too. So yeah, the way people get inspired and the way they can, read different books or not read them, is there's an inspirational figure out there for everybody, and it's going to be different for everybody too.
Yeah. And as far as, I should kind of correct myself too with Jay, I don't know if he ever read it or didn't read it. Maybe he did read it and he just personally didn't like it. So I shouldn't say, I shouldn't presume to know what he did, but it was just interesting, to hear like what you were saying, that people have different backgrounds and they have different strategies to attack that. Next time we'll definitely talk more about mindset and these different sources too. I'm at the end of, I'm finishing up $100 million offers. And I was really blown away by the intro of that book too. I don't want to give it away to anybody who hasn't read it yet, but that was really cool how his personal story, with his I think his fiance at the time, and then just like the in-laws and stuff, and then the whole emotion behind all of that. It's pretty intense.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty, yeah.
Let's talk about self-made,
Yeah. And I love the part when he's just like, when he's talking about all these different consequences that he's facing on the business end. And he's like, this time the stakes were real, and that kind of hit home is just like, wow. Yeah. Like that's the thing about business too, is like the debt can rack up so quickly that it's scary. I mean, I haven't experienced that yet, but just like, I know I can kind of relate to that, the real life consequences of that,
Oh yeah.
It's intense. Where can people find you?
All over. I'm on, pretty much every social media. So, I'm most active on Instagram, I'd say, but yeah, my business is on every platform besides TikTok. I need to start that, but haven't, but just, will when I need to, but it's not important right now, but.
So I forget your handle. It's at Calvin Ludwig.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just in case, I like to say it just in case people are only listening,
Oh yeah.
But cool. And then 4Blades, is it still 4Blades digital?
Yeah.
.com?
Yeah.
Nice.
4bladesdigital.com and just 4Blades Digital on, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all on there. So yeah, if you're interested in construction, I'd happy to teach you anything you want to know about it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, hey, Calvin, I've been out to Colorado once, but I really want to go back sometime. So if I'm ever out there, I'll hit you up, man.
I love it, dude. That sounds like a plan. The camera's about to die, so I'll turn that off. But yeah, dude, I love it, man. I look forward. We need to chat more too. And
yeah.
So it's good chat. Likewise, dude. It's good to hear from you. I'm fucking love to see your success too. It's been really inspiring and it's really awesome to see. And it's cool to see. I can tell you're happy. I can tell you've got a lot of good stuff going, and it's really cool to see. So I love it.
Thanks,
Keep it
man.
up, dude.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I really enjoyed this conversation, Calvin, and yeah, we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, dude. Talk soon, man.
Okay, take care, Calvin.
Later, dude.
See you.